So just a note, we will be having some QR codes, so you can have your smartphones ready to capture those for the links, or you can take screenshots of the presentation. And so the site where the ancient port of Berenike lies is not a site we can identify a traditional community inhabiting the area, as it is a military restricted zone. Thus, there are no active communities inhabiting the archaeological site. Typically, in the community archaeology or heritage projects, the concept is to connect the current living people in parallel with the past peoples to find a greater sense of empowerment through heritage. Now, or some form of stewardship. So the closest community of people we have are the Ababda tribe and the other community members living in towns like Hamata and Shalatin, and also the mountains nearby. To give you an idea of the distance from our camp, Shalatin is about 115 kilometers south. Hamata is about 70 kilometers north, where the closest cafe is located, and Marsa Alam is about 150 kilometers north. So in summary, our community landscapes looks like the following. You have the military, you have surrounding communities, we have our local labor categorized into two categories. You have the people who come from the main cities like Cairo and Aswan, who travel for the seasonal work, and you have our co-workers who come from the neighboring towns. You have the researchers who come and live in the encampment, including foreign and local, and then you have the regional Ministry of Antiquities for the Red Sea District, that is heavily involved with the facilitation of archaeological work at Berenike, as well as the global audience. And these are the categories we define as community involved in Berenike. Our living situation in Berenike is very isolated. We do have some workers, co-workers that live with us from the community, as well as our department reps from the region. So these past 2 seasons, we decided we wanted to do some meaningful work with the community at Berenike. So we took a step back and decided what would have the most impact and what is most meaningful. So I noticed in my conversations in 2023 with the workers that we have essentially very skilled co-workers who come dig with us from around Egypt and the nearby towns, and they have been working many years with the different international missions of Berenike. So after these informal inquiries from asking around, I found out that many of our co-workers did not see themselves as skilled excavators, and yet somehow they had learned their skilled excavation mastery despite the language barriers, because a key difference was we didn't have foreign expertise that could communicate well in the local language. And thus, over the course of years, they somehow still mastered this with the language barrier. And so for the initial phase, we decided to focus on our immediate community, our skilled labor colleagues. And so now in the traditional outreach, the traditional outreach aspect would not work, whereas with a community like ours, it would have no meaningful impact to go to local schools or local communities to do PowerPoint presentations or a photo shoot or something like that. So examples of how we did relation building includes hosting a workshop with the Regional Department of Antiquities, where Ivana spoke about some of the latest findings with Berenike, and I did a training on using smartphone devices on archaeological survey with open access options for some of the regional department reps. I spent time with some of our older workers and any workers that were interested in learning more about archaeological methodology, because they had the skills, they just didn't have the vocabulary or the reasoning behind why we did what we did. And so a lot of that was me going from trench to trench and just chatting and building those relationships with our workers. And any curiosities they had, because a lot of our workers love asking about gold, but there are also many layers to that as well, understanding the actual impact of heritage. And so we did site tours, and at the end of the 2024 season, we did a presentation where Ivana had presented a general history of the site and what the importance of their work and how that impacted like the general understanding of Berenike. And also another example of relationship building, we had a death with one of our workers who had been with the mission for many, many years in the summer of 2023. And so what we did was we went to do tazia at the house of the widow. And so Ivana and Marek had compiled some photos of the worker on site in the field and printed them so that his family could have these photos and show support. And so we do have so much more room to grow, but as the initial phase of this outreach project, I would say it's been very successful, and hopefully it will grow better. So to summarize, we focused on building relations with our community, growing better in understanding, communicating their significance to in the excavations, and showing our appreciation. And an accumulation of this led to us having a little communal celebration with our workers. And I will leave the floor to Casper, who is co-presenting with me.
Thank you, Sana, very much. Good afternoon, everybody. So, as an activity that engages our Berenike communities, we seized the occasion of the 13th anniversary of excavations in Berenike by celebrating Hafla, a party. Our approach was to leave as much of the organization as possible to our coworkers, so it was their celebration with us and not the other way around. So the role of the Berenike team was subsidiary to theirs and was limited to providing resources and connecting with the archaeological Berenike community abroad. And this anniversary reunited all those who worked at the site during the time, including Ministry of Antiquities officials, and also virtually anyone involved with this great place over all these years. We ate together, enjoying traditional bread baked in the fire, made on the spot, as you can see on the slide. Listen to the speeches given by the directors, and you can see Mariusz also with the mobile phone with transmission, and dance together with sabers to the music played from a boombox by the organizers, namely our local community. And all of this was transmitted via Google Meet call, creating a parallel and intermingling celebration, accompanied by a slideshow of historical photos of the site of the excavations prepared by Ivana. And towards the end of the party, we're also taking many photos in various combinations, like group photos, trench teams, and in smaller groups as well. Next slide, please. And when discussing photography, we cannot overlook the role of social media. In this specific social and natural environment of Berenike, reaching out using digital tools is an indispensable way of communication. So while the desert is not an easy place to work, navigating the digital landscape can be equally challenging. However, when you get acquainted with its specifics, you can do it effectively. Therefore, when communicating through social media, we needed to consider that all the rules that apply to social media content creators worldwide also apply to archaeological fan pages. For example, people are more likely to stop scrolling and spend more screen time if they see human faces. That's why we decided to present short bios of the team. We tried to keep the posts visually attractive, concise, and informative. And you can see an example of such post and QR code to our Instagram profile on the slide. Also, you can simply write down or note the name of the fan page. Next slide, please. And on our social media, additionally, of course, you can find relations from events and any notable moments, including and such social media as X, former Twitter. And you can also here see an example and QR code to X or the name of the fan page. Next slide, please. So we could potentially spend money to increase our reach on social media, and that would result in a significant increase in views, but funds are limited, can be spent otherwise, and unique random views simply in number is not our ultimate goal. We aim to provide the opportunity to discover the excavations to anyone interested in the site, and they can do it by using the name Berenike or relevant hashtags on the fan page. And another way is also to tag people in the post. So this is a very cost-effective way. And also we can use simply personal accounts of team members and spread the word among friends and colleagues. And this was done, for example, with the talk given last month by Kuba in Gdańsk. You can see the example here. And such talks are addressed to communities abroad, and such members of such communities can access the Berenike site, for example, with virtual walk on Google Street View. You can access this this digital tool via this QR code. Next slide, please. Yeah, it was the Google Street View. Here you can see that we've got also Berenike free virtual tour, which is another digital tool that can make the site accessible to the communities that would otherwise could not see anything. And on a side note, because we are going towards the end of the presentation, we also, for communication, created a WhatsApp group, which is one of default communicators in Egypt for us and our Egyptian co-workers. And the last slide, please. And lastly, of course, there are plenty of tasks ahead of us when it comes to social media and communicating, but we can also think in the future, not now, about new communities, and they may include people from South Asia or Central Africa, as these are the sites that were impacted in history by Berenike, and who knows, maybe this is the way for the future, but we should also consider the presence of how the presence of the archaeological team impacts fauna and build communities with non-human animals, as well as we have seen in the second presentation, the beautiful donkey animals are always present in our Berenike community on the desert. Thank you so much, and if you want to ask, comment, or suggest anything, please do during the discussion.